We have some amazing shows here on Pod TV, and one of these shows, I am glad to say that this lady is a friend of mine, and she's doing a great job. And all along those ways, she is definitely doing a lot of activism work, and she knows that I'm a big fan of activists and activism, and she's making sure that the timeshares are not cheating people, and all along those lines. And we know that unfortunately, there's a lot of that misrepresentation going on in society, and particularly with the timeshares. And she'll definitely be talking about that. And that's my good friend Irene Parker, who is doing this amazing activism work and all along those lines. So the show here is with one of our top rated shows, Timeshares, Solution or Surrender. And Irene Parker has been doing a great job. So I'm glad to bring her on and see what she's got on her mind and how things are going with this amazing show and all along that line. Because you're doing a great job. And I just have to say that I have a great deal of respect for the activism work that you're doing. Some people would call it advocacy work.
Yes, well, semantics, right, Mark? But this is episode 101 of Timeshare Solution or Surrender. And we appreciate you and my co-host and executive producer, Kimberly, has run off to the Kentucky Derby.
Yes.
So we're going it alone. But this is our show, not my show. And we have Julie, who is a returning guest. We're always pleased to have someone that has been on the show before. Now we have another guest, but I am not seeing him. Are you, Mark?
I'm not. Apparently, when we were getting the show started, he popped off, so he might have to be trying to get his computer back. So hopefully, he'll be joining us later. If not, you can tell us about his story because it was a very poignant story that he was talking about with the veterans and all that they're going through and all along those lines. But it looked like he popped off as we were beginning the show.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's hope we see Carl come back on again. And thank you, Julie, for being here. And what we're trying to do is we are trying to devote almost all of our efforts to the Timeshare Transparency Act. And I starting with the Timeshare Resource Library because so I don't forget at the end of the show, but we did 86 1-hour episodes, and then it just got to be a lot, juggling 3 to 5 guests every week. So now we have 25 minutes live and 35 minutes pre-recorded. And so we have, beginning with Brian Rogers of Tug, one of the best resources, and we go down to Jonathan Stoker, manages vacation portfolios. John Cushman maintains a remarkable scam hotline, all the way down to an attorney talking about Mexico timeshares, and then our self-advocacy process. So there's nothing like having somebody who has been through the process and has come back and lived to tell about it. So, Julie, two of the provisions of the Timeshare Transparency Act that was introduced by Senator John Curtis of Utah and Senator Adam Schiff of California, bipartisan, is to disclose clear documented options when you purchase a timeshare. And that applies to you. The other provision applies to Carl, who we hope comes back with us. We had a little bit of trouble with his sound as well. Carl is an incoming TARTA board member with a remarkable background, and he was supposed to be on a couple weeks ago with Lois, and Lois and Carl had the same situation where they couldn't sell their timeshare. They tried, but they were able to rent it out for $800 or $900. So both of them had a week with Vacation Village. Vacatia has acquired Vacation Village, and now they have a pooling of rental income. And instead of getting $800 to $900, they each got $250. And they are inundated. So let's start with you. And you started the exit process about over 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And you retained an exit company, and you're one of the lucky ones that got your money back. Right. But I always wonder if you had attempted to talk to Oakmont before you retained the exit company. And which Oakmont, where is Oakmont at?
Oakmont is in Tennessee, near the
Okay.
Smoky Mountains.
And you're in Michigan.
I'm in Michigan, right?
Okay.
So,
Okay.
no, I did not. I didn't actually even think to do that. I just wanted out. And, it's surfing around the net. You kind of you get the pop-ups, and I called and I got hooked into that. And they guaranteed me that if they didn't sell it in 2 years, I would get my money back. And I kept calling and there was no progress. And I kept saying, explain the process, and there was no progress. And eventually I got my money back. And I guess that's pretty rare. So I was pretty grateful. And then somehow along the way, I connected with Tarda after that. So, and then again, I don't know if you have questions right now or if I'm supposed to just continue my story.
You said a pop-up. Was it like a Facebook sponsored ad
I
or
probably
something?
was Googling, how to get out of timeshares, or, once you start down that journey on the internet, you start to get all kinds of information popping up on your.
Yeah, so there's a push and a pull marketing strategy.
Yeah.
So the push is they call you on the phone, hey, we heard you had trouble with your timeshare, we're working on this. And the pull is to pull you in with an ad. So you responded to an ad, and then when you called them, so you're saying they had a 2-year guarantee.
Yeah, a 2-year guarantee, and I've kept track. I totally kept track. I kept a notebook of my calls, and so when it was coming up on it, I said I'd like my money back because it doesn't look like anything's going to happen. I guess I was really lucky, that I got it back, because it's a lot of times I guess you don't. So.
What was the process they used to attempt to was it to cancel the contract or sell the contract?
I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but I had to cancel my contract with them. But I look back at my notes. I think I just was kind of firm, and maybe they thought I might take it to another level. I'm not sure, but I was doing a happy dance when I got my check.
What work did they do for you, I guess?
Nothing. I don't think I couldn't get a straight answer, Irene. It was very strange, but they said that if they got a notice that somebody was interested, because they had listed all these in my timeshare week, they would get a hold of Oakmont and see if Oakmont would okay them. I'm like, why would they do that? Like, what would be their advantage of getting a new person? It was very strange, and a year into it, I thought, oh no, what did I do? What did I do? So
it looks like we have, Carl, he's having some problems getting connected here. So what they talked about is, by them having to contact Oakmont, is that what they probably were referring to was right of first refusal.
Yeah.
And so that's actually not a bad thing, because it can actually support the stock price. But so it sounds like they were attempting to sell it as opposed to trying to get it canceled by asking.
Right. No, they were trying to sell it to somebody else.
Okay. All right. And so the what's going on right now is there are these attorney-backed exit companies. And in our pre-recorded segment, there's an attorney that talks about the difference between exit companies and law firms. So an exit company cannot represent you because they're not a law firm. So the attorney back gives people the false sense of security that they're being represented by counsel, but they're not, because if you were, then all the correspondence goes through the law firm. And what's really rotten is many of these exit companies charge more than a law firm, and they can't even represent you. So we had one person that paid $4,000 to cancel their contract, but they charged the entire purchase to a credit card, and they said, we can't help you with that. So defaulting on maintenance fees and defaulting on a loan is pretty dramatic difference. Now, when you were on our show about 8 months ago with our board member, Jake Burku, who has served over 30 years on an HOA board, you were pretty distraught and your son wasn't very happy with you.
No, because they had convinced me to put his name on the deed because he was going to get it anyway. So in order for me to default, that meant he would have to default or they would go after him. So I did end up paying a lawyer to get the deed rewritten to just my name. So Andy is off the deed, and that was a step I had to take. When they're talking to you, it all makes sense. It's all so fast that they're talking about. It makes sense that he would be on the deed because he's going to get it anyway. He doesn't want it, So, yeah, so that was a step I had to take, was to pay $300 to have a lawyer rewrite the deed.
Well, and in the heat of the moment, when you're happy and you have these wonderful vacation images in your mind, you're like, oh yeah, sure, my kids would love to have this, and that's not always the case. And what's happening is these they call them legacy resorts, which is another word for old.
Yeah,
and they become sinking ships. And then investors swoop in. The buzzword these days is repurpose. And they'll come in and convert it to whole use condos. One of them, I think I heard someone said they converted part of it to an assisted living. And I thought, what a great idea, because they look like assisted living since we all bought them 40 years ago, right? And so now then, you really, like most people, wanted to exit responsibly. So to make sure that you did absolutely everything under your sun, first of all, you said with Oakmont, they have a website, but there was a minimum amount that you had to list it for.
So through your coaching and Jake's coaching, we got a hold of them, and they said they did have an exit program. I was able to post on their page that my timeshare week was for sale, and the minimum that I could post was $2,500. So I went and did that, and I realized there were hundreds on there for $2,500. So it was like my name just kept scrolling to the bottom of the list, I'm sure, every time somebody added. So I got a back call them, like, who looks at this page? Who even knows to go to Oakmont and look at this page? And they said other timeshare owners often want a second week. And so I said, okay, that didn't seem like a reasonable exit program to me.
So then Jake walked you through the process of using both Red Week and Tug. Which one did you list with first?
So we actually posted on Tug, and he was able to help me kind of keep getting it to the top of the list because I wasn't sure how to do that. We never did list with Red Week. We were waiting for a certain time. I went into Red Week. There was 2 listings for Oakmont. One was for $1, and it was still there. And then the other one, I think, was $1,000 or something. But it was, I think that was like, oh, it's probably not going to go anywhere on Red Week. So we did not do that. He had me book a week and then list it for, I think, on sale on Tug, because it was going to be, it looked like it was a reasonable, good week. And maybe that would be an incentive for people to kind of be excited about it. So nothing happened with that. We ended up taking it off. So I'm kind of left. Yeah, here we are still. And I'm getting the letters because I have decided not to pay my maintenance fee after.
So you did not pay 2026 maintenance fees? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
I got 2 letters that I'm behind.
Yeah, Wyndham is in bankruptcy on, I thought it was 15 resorts, but I think Jake said he looked at it and there's 17 resorts that they're filing and they're in bankruptcy process. And Holiday Inn is, I don't know if they're selling or whatever, disengaging. They bought Silverleaf Resorts in 2015, and they are not going to be timeshares anymore as well. So timeshares were invented before Airbnb
Oh
and
yeah.
VVRO and even Expedia, I think. So it's a bit of a broken model for these legacy resorts. Now, I want to go over the Timeshare Transparency Act, a couple other things in it, because something came up just in the last week. We sent out if you go to the TARDA blog, and you go to the first post, it's about the timeshare bill. Instead of doing a new newsletter every month, we're just updating it. So naturally, this came the day after we sent the April newsletter out, where Senator Curtis is questioning the chairman of the Federal Trade Commission about timeshare. So this is a Senate bill. And timeshare is regulated at the state level, which has been the problem. There's a lot of confusion between the states. Some states you file with the attorney general, some states you file with the real estate division. And so the comment made by Chairman Andrew Ferguson was that the number of complaints has not gone up, but the rate of loss has gone up significantly. And I reached out to Senator Curtis's office and to the Federal Trade Commission and said, not that many people think to file with the
No.
Federal Trade Commission. Have you filed with the Federal
No,
Trade Commission?
no, we talked last week and it's on my list of things to do. I just haven't gotten to it yet. But
Okay, homework.
yeah, my homework.
Okay, so the FTC in Section 5 defines unfair and deceptive practices. And Attorney Mike Finn's been on the show. He's on our pre-recorded, and he told me one time that people talk a lot about deceptive and not enough about unfair.
Okay.
So with one of the bill's provisions being provide clear documented options to exit at purchase, would you have bought this if you had known that there was no way out?
No, and, of course not. And they told me I would get like 2 times more vacation weeks by switching to Oakmont with, less money. And it was just sounded like, well, you'd be stupid not to do this. But no, if they said you'll never be able to get out of it unless we hit your credit and all that good stuff, no. No.
Gosh. And the other thing that I'd like to address, and I want to make sure 25 minutes slips around pretty fast, so we have about another 5 minutes left. But one thing that the developers are claiming is that there's only a small number of people that are unhappy, and therefore additional regulation is not needed. Every day, just about, we hear from somebody that has lost money, including today, to an exit company. And if the Mexican cartels, the U.S. Treasury just talked about the hundreds of millions of dollars lost to Mexican cartels. AARP has a letter of support on the bill, and in their February-March newsletter, they had the 5 frauds from the trenches. And one of them was a man that over a series of checks wired $900,000 to get out of his timeshare. And Earl has been on our show. He's in Nova Scotia, and he lost pretty much his whole life savings. I think it was like 102,000 Canadian dollars. And how can to point the finger at exit companies and say that they're the problem, that you would be very happy if it wasn't for exit companies telling you that you're not happy, which is just ludicrous. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Carl. I'm sorry he wasn't able to get back on screen. We were having some audio problems with him, but Carl, he's an incoming TARTA board member, and he has a degree in legal services education and a master's in criminal justice. He wrote 3 books, one, Growing Up Poverty Level, second, The War Never Ends, where he interviewed homeless veterans, and the third book, Victimization of the Innocent. And so I believe you can order these on Amazon, but we're so proud. And also, last but not least, he worked as an intern for Senator John Kerry. So we add all that up, that's a pretty valuable board member to us. And then we have couple of things I wanted to talk about here is talked about the bankruptcies, and I've got, okay, so you, and also, I don't know if you mentioned this before, but the company that was involved with your exit company, you received a bankruptcy notice for them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, I
okay.
did.
Okay, all right. And so we are going to be taking off the, oh, wait a minute, here comes Carl. Carl,
Uh-oh.
can you hear us, Carl?
I can hear you, but I don't know what happened. I can't call you on
No,
the
we
phone
can't.
either.
No, I have it on airplane because we're live. Yeah, so I can't do that, but we're glad to hear you. I just told everybody about your book, so it couldn't have been better timing.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
Lois was on the show April 6th, and her story was identical to yours. I told everyone about the rental income that
Oh,
decreased from 8 to 900 to 250, and I went over that you're an incoming board member, so at least we're very happy to see your face and
thank you.
associate a
I'm
face
glad
with
I
your
can too.
remarkable.
I'm 72 years old, you know that.
Yeah, I've got you beat. So
I
is there
played
anything we
July
have?
8th.
And we have a few more minutes. And Carl, is there anything you want to add to your situation? You
No,
are
I'm in the
applying for a
process.
hardship.
Yeah, I'm in the process. She's seeing the doctor Wednesday. I have a, I know they have standard letters, but I put together something a little bit different that he might be able to, help him. My doctor's really old.
Yeah, and in Florida, you have to wait 6 months to get a doctor's appointment, and I'm sure doctors love to write letters about getting out of a timeshare. And
Yes.
if you have a 4-bedroom home and your kids move out, you don't have to get a letter from your
Exactly.
doctor to sell your home.
That's
It's
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad especially since you're going to be elected to the board on Thursday, I'm so glad that everyone at least got to see your
I thought
face
it
in
was
the last 2
Friday.
minutes here.
It's
And
Friday or
Mark,
Thursday.
yeah. Okay.
When is it,
So
Friday or Thursday?
Thursday.
Well, see, I can start writing this stuff down. I can down
And
to
Mark,
Friday.
thank you for filling in for Kim today.
Mhm.
And we really appreciate everything that you've done for us. It looks like we are running out of time.
Yeah.
And I always have 2 guests because I've learned to expect the unexpected. So thanks, Julie, for picking up the slack here while we were waiting for Carl to join us.
I was trying to join you. I was going crazy. I said, "Oh, my computer."
It happens.
It happens sometimes. That's what goes on. But it's another great episode, and like you said, we'll be having a month of reruns and all along those lines. But very important information that folks can still gather during that time, and you'll be back in June, and that'll be right around
Yes.
the time
Thanks,
of
Mark.
summer and everything like that. So this is very much important advocacy work that needs to be done, and you're doing a great job, and you are helping a lot of individuals, and we're glad to be part of that here on Pod TV. So with that being
Thank
said,
you so
I'm going
much.
to get us on out of here and looking forward to your involvement, Carl, as a board member. And Judy, you're
Thank
doing
you
some
so
great things as well. So I definitely appreciate all of you
By
sharing your
the
story.
way, I contacted Greg Kelly on Newsmax too about our organization.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Thank you for that.
Exactly, but I got a hold of him anyway.
We need more working board members, so
You never can
appreciate it.
tell. I know that on one of our other shows, they have been on other podcasts because of people reaching out to them and everything like that. So that's the show that we do about Ukraine, Russia, and China. But there have been
Oh,
people that
really?
reach out to leaders
I'd be interested in
they've
that
had on
too.
the shows because of that. So that advocacy work is very much needed, and sometimes you get the people that get a good result from that and everything like that. So
Yeah,
we'll see what
yeah.
happens. Might wind up on Newsmax or some of these other programs and all along those lines. But on that note, we're getting ready to get on out of here, and we'll have the resource library coming up as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Carl.
Okay, you're welcome, guys. Thank you.